Hi, I'm Jake, 32, and last month my life blew up when I got a message from the stepdaughter who once replaced me with her deadbeat dad, asking if I'd walk her daughter down the aisle. It's been 12 years since I left. 12 years since that final, gut punch night when Sarah screamed, Emma iced over, and I was told to get out and never come back. They made good on that. I haven't seen either of them since. Not at Christmas. Not for birthdays. Not even a condolence card when my own mother passed. I started over. Quietly. Patched myself up in a small apartment with peeling paint and creaky floors. Sophie, the woman I never meant to fall for, helped glue me back together, piece by piece. We never married, she said once was enough for both of us, but we built something real. Something quiet and warm and honest. I spent my time woodworking again. Nothing fancy. Tables, shelves, chairs. Something about shaping chaos into order made me feel human again. I taught a night class on practical carpentry at the local community college. Got a dog. Learned to cook things that didn't come from a microwave. For once, no one needed me. And I liked it that way. Until last week. I was sweeping sawdust off the floor of the garage when I saw it, a pale blue envelope, wedged under my front door. No stamp. No return address. I picked it up, expecting some local real estate offer or a misplaced birthday invite from a neighbor. But inside was a single sheet of creamy paper with perfect handwriting. Jake. I know I have no right. I know I gave up the privilege of asking anything from you long ago. But I need to tell you something. I'm getting married again. And I don't want Mark to walk me down the aisle this time. I want it to be you. I understand if the answer is no. I deserve that. But if there's even the smallest chance you might say yes. I'll be at Hillside Park this Sunday at 4 p.m. Love, Emma. I read it twice. Then a third time. I stood in that garage with the note in my hand, my heartbeat thudding in my ears. The paper felt heavier than it should. My dog barked at a squirrel outside, unaware that the world had just cracked open. Emma. 12 years of nothing, and now this. Sophie found me an hour later, still staring at the note like it might catch fire in my hands. She didn't ask if I was going. She just said, whatever you decide, make sure it's for you. Not the man you used to be. Not the man they expect. That's the thing about Sophie. She sees you. Sunday came faster than I expected. And I went. Not because I'd forgiven her. Not because I thought things could be fixed. But because part of me, the broken, stitched-up part that still answered to Dad, needed to see if the girl who walked away was still in there somewhere. What I didn't know was who else would be waiting at that park. Hillside Park hadn't changed. The same duck pond with the broken fountain. The same benches with initials carved into them. The same soft wind that always carried the scent of lilacs and mulch. I parked by the old trailhead and walked, the crunch of gravel underfoot feeling too loud in the silence. Emma was already there. She stood near the pond, in a pale yellow sundress, her hair in a loose braid like she used to wear in high school. But she wasn't alone. A little girl stood beside her, maybe 6, holding tightly to her hand and squinting up at me as I approached. She had a toy horse clutched in one arm and wore sneakers with glittery laces. When she saw me, she didn't flinch or hide. She just said, very matter-of-factly, Mommy, is that the other grandpa? Emma knelt down and whispered something in her ear. The girl nodded solemnly and took a step closer. I'm Lily, she said. Do you like cake? I blinked. Very much, I managed to say. Emma stood up slowly. Her voice shook. She's Andrew's daughter. From his first marriage. But I've been raising her since she was 3. He passed away last year. I nodded once. No words came. I didn't tell you in the letter because I didn't want pity. I just... She exhaled, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. I've had time to think. A lot of time. About everything I did. About everything you did. I waited. Part of me wanted to turn around and walk away. But another part, the stubborn, battered part, stood still. I was so stupid, she said finally. I spent years thinking biology made someone a parent. That blood mattered more than presence. That gestures mattered more than consistency. And I punished you for loving me too well. A duck quacked in the distance. Lily wandered off to feed it invisible breadcrumbs. Emma's voice dropped lower. After Andrew died, I called Mark. I was a wreck. I just wanted someone to help. To show up. And you know what he said? That sounds hard, Em. I hope things work out. Then he hung up. I said nothing. I didn't feel victorious. Just tired. He's not coming to the wedding, she said. He hasn't even met Lily. He doesn't want this life. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in over a decade. She had new lines under her eyes. A tiredness I recognized. The kind that comes from being needed more than you're ready for. So why now? I asked. Why me? Emma swallowed. Because you're the only person who ever stayed when it wasn't easy. Because I can't undo what I did, but I can try to honor what you meant. What you mean? And because Lily deserves to know the kind of man you are. Lily was now crouched beside a pigeon, whispering secrets to it. I want her to have someone she can look up to, Emma said. Someone who shows up. I stood there for a long time. My hands trembled, though I kept them still in my pockets. Then, without thinking, I said the dumbest thing I could have said. Does she really like cake? Emma let out a breath, half a laugh, half a sob. She's obsessed. I nodded slowly. Then I guess I'd better stick around. Someone's got a taste test. We didn't hug. Not yet. But something cracked open between us. Not healed, but open. And just when I thought that was the end of the surprises, Emma pulled something out of her bag and handed it to me. It was a photo. Of me. In a folding chair. At her graduation. Tears in her eyes, arms around my neck. And scribbled on the back in handwriting that looked like hers, but younger, were 4 simple words. Thank you for staying. Emma. I'd never seen it before. She'd kept it all these years. My throat burned. And in that moment I knew, this story wasn't finished. Not yet. I didn't sleep much that night. I sat in my garage, turning the photo over and over in my hands, as if the past might rewrite itself if I just stared hard enough. The picture had worn edges, a faint coffee stain in the corner. But she'd kept it. Through everything. Through all the silence and distance. She had kept it. Sophie noticed the shift immediately. I hadn't told her about the park. Not everything. Just that Emma had reached out, and I needed time to think. She didn't push. That was one of the things I loved about her. She gave space, but always noticed when something filled it. You saw her, she said, setting 2 mugs of tea on the counter. Didn't you? I nodded. She didn't flinch. Just leaned against the counter and asked. And? I told her about Lily. About the apology. The photo. Sophie took a long sip of her tea and stared out the window. So, what happens now? I didn't know. I still don't. But I told her the truth. She asked me to walk her down the aisle. The silence that followed was sharp. Like a pinprick in the air between us. Are you going to? She asked quietly. I think I have to. Sophie gave a small, sad smile. Yeah. I figured. And that was it. No dramatic arguments. No ultimatums. Just the quiet knowing that the man she found broken and bleeding still had unfinished business. In the weeks that followed, Emma and I met a few times. Carefully. Like we were learning each other all over again. She didn't rush things. She didn't ask for money. She didn't expect forgiveness like a given. She just showed up. Once, she brought Lily with her. We spent an afternoon at a playground. I pushed Lily on the swing, her giggles echoing like Emma's once had. Emma sat on the bench, watching us with a strange look, half sorrow, half hope. Then came the fitting. The tailor raised an eyebrow when I told him what the suit was for. Second wedding? He asked, smirking. Second chance? I corrected. He nodded like he understood. 2 days before the wedding, Emma called me. Her voice was shaky. Mark's trying to come, she said. He said he wants to make things right. A pause. But I told him no. I told him that seat was taken. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. The lump in my throat made sure of that. And then the day came. The church was modest, sunlit, draped in wild flowers and paper lanterns. Lily was the flower girl. She scattered petals with the determination of a military operation. Emma waited behind the doors, radiant and nervous, gripping my arm with trembling fingers. "I'm not sure I deserve this," she whispered. "You don't," I said, and she looked at me startled. Then I smiled. "But I'm not doing it because you earned it. I'm doing it because I did. I showed up. So I'm going to finish what I started." She nodded, eyes brimming. And then the music began. As we stepped into the aisle, arm in arm, the guests rose. And for the first time in decades, all eyes were on me. But not as the backup plan. As Dad. I'd always imagined that moment, walking Emma down the aisle, as something triumphant. A victory lap. Proof that all the years of scraped knees, late-night fevers, dance recitals, and quiet sacrifices had meant something. But standing there arm in arm, it didn't feel like a win. It felt like a funeral and a rebirth at the same time. As we took slow steps down the aisle, the music swelling around us, I caught glimpses of faces turning to look, some familiar, many not. But none of them mattered. Not even Sarah's. Yes. She was there. Sitting on the groom's side, dressed in dark blue, her mouth tight, hands clasped in her lap. We hadn't spoken since the divorce papers were finalized 2 years ago. Not even a text. She looked older. Sadder. But when our eyes met, just for a moment, she didn't look away. She gave the smallest nod. Not forgiveness. Not warmth. Just acknowledgement. Like she finally saw me. Emma's grip on my arm tightened the closer we got to the altar. "Do I look okay?" she whispered, her voice quivering. "You look like the version of you I always hoped you'd become," I said. That got a shaky laugh out of her. "Even after everything?" I looked forward, where her groom waited, eyes glassy, smile wide. "Especially after everything." We reached the front. I kissed her cheek, something I hadn't done since she was 16, and begged me to stop being all dad-like, and placed her hand in his. Then I stepped back. Not out of the picture. Just into a new frame. The ceremony was beautiful. Vows that made people cry. Lily curled up in my lap halfway through, whispering that her shoes were definitely too stupid for standing. I nodded solemnly. She took them off and promptly fell asleep on my shoulder. At the reception, people came up to me. Strangers. Distant relatives. Emma's friends who hadn't seen me since her high school years. "You're her stepdad, right?" I gave the same answer every time. "I raised her." No one corrected me. "Sophie didn't come. I didn't ask her to." Some things don't fit in every story, no matter how much you want them to. But she texted. "Proud of you. You earned this." Every step. I stepped outside for some air after the cake was cut. The night had cooled, stars beginning to freckle the sky. That's when Sarah approached. I didn't hear her at first, just the sound of her heels on gravel. "You did the right thing," she said softly, standing beside me. I didn't respond. She tucked a strand of silver blonde hair behind her ear. "You always did, I never realized how much it cost you." I turned toward her. "You chose her. Every time. She's my daughter," she said simply. "I was your husband." She didn't deny it. Just looked down. I was angry. At her, at myself, at you. I wanted someone to blame. And I was convenient. Another pause. "You were real," she said. "Mark was a ghost. You had weight. So when things broke, you were the one that hurt the most to watch walk away." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get. I didn't hate her. Not anymore. But I didn't miss her either. "I'm happy," I said. "Not always. Not every day. But more than I used to be." "I'm glad," she said, and meant it. We stood in silence a few minutes longer before she turned to go. "Oh, and Jake?" "Yeah?" She smiled, sad, soft. "You really do look good in that suit." I laughed. Then I went back inside. Because there was one last dance waiting for me. The lights inside the reception hall had dimmed, casting everything in that soft, golden haze reserved for only the best kind of endings. Lily had woken up cranky from her nap and was now sitting on the edge of the dance floor, gnawing on a frosting-covered plastic fork like a tiny wedding goblin. The DJ's voice came over the speakers. And now, for a very special moment, the bride's dance with her father. There was a pause. A long one. Guests turned their heads confused. I froze. Emma stood at the edge of the floor, eyes locked on me, bouquet clutched tight in both hands. And slowly, deliberately, she raised one hand and extended it toward me. I didn't move. Not right away. I thought about the first wedding. About sitting in a stiff chair in the back row, ignored while Mark basked in applause he hadn't earned. About Sarah's glare when I said no to bailing them out. About cold nights in a house that no longer felt like mine. And then I looked at Emma. Not just the woman in a wedding dress, but the girl who used to fall asleep in the back seat with crayons in her lap. The girl who wrote, "I love you, Dad," on the inside of birthday cards. The girl who forgot. And then remembered. I stepped forward. The music started. Stand by me. A little on the nose. I didn't care. She reached for me with trembling fingers, and I took her hand. We didn't say anything for the first verse. We just moved. Clumsily. Slowly. Like we were still figuring out the rhythm of forgiveness. Then, finally, she whispered, "I should have done this the first time." I didn't let her finish. "You didn't know how," I said. "And I didn't know how to tell you." We danced in circles, and people watched, but I didn't care. The lights blurred. My throat burned. "I miss you," she said. "Every day. Even when I was too proud to say it. I miss my dad." That word, Dad, landed heavier than any apology ever could. "I miss you too," I said, and I wasn't sure if I meant her, or who I used to be when she still needed me. Halfway through the song, Lily darted out onto the floor. "I want to dance too." Emma pulled away, laughing, and lifted her onto my feet. So there we were, 3 people, awkwardly swaying. A woman trying to make things right. A little girl with sticky fingers and no clue what any of this meant. And a man who once gave everything and thought he had nothing left. But I did. I had this. When the song ended, people clapped. Emma hugged me again, tighter this time. Not out of obligation, but out of memory. And hope. I stood there in the middle of that floor, watching her get pulled into another group photo, watching Lily chase after a balloon, and I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. Not because it was fixed. Not because it was perfect. But because, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. The wedding faded into memory the way they all do, one frame at a time. The dress packed away. The flowers wilted. The photos posted. But the moment that stuck with me wasn't the aisle, or the dance, or even Emma's apology. It was a Tuesday morning, 2 weeks later, when I found a crayon drawing folded neatly in my mailbox. A picture of 3 stick figures holding hands. One had glasses. One had long hair. One had a cape. Underneath, in messy purple letters, "Me and Mommy and Super Jake. Love, Lily." That's when I cried. Not the stoic kind of manly cry I'd practiced over the years. I mean full, aching sobs in the garage, curled over a workbench, gripping that piece of paper like it might vanish if I blinked too hard. Because it was the first time in my life that someone gave me a title I didn't know I needed, Super Jake. And somehow, that felt more honest than Dad. Emma and I didn't become best friends overnight. We didn't erase the past or pretend it hadn't happened. But we started calling once a week. Sometimes to talk. Sometimes just to listen. She'd tell me about Lily's school, or the plumbing nightmare in their new rental. I'd tell her about the latest thing I built, or how Sophie had started selling her abstract paintings at a local co-op. Yeah. Sophie. We're still together. She never demanded a decision from me, never made me choose between her and some late-bloomed version of fatherhood. Instead, she just kept showing up. Quiet. Consistent. It's funny. That's what I always thought I was good at. Turns out, consistency loves company. One Sunday, Emma and Lily came over for dinner. Sophie cooked. Lily immediately demanded that her art go on our fridge, and Emma brought a bottle of wine like we were just normal people who had never blown up their lives with decades of emotional damage. And maybe, just for that night, we were. We sat on the porch afterward, sipping wine, watching Lily chase fireflies with a mason jar. Emma leaned back in her chair, looked at me, and said, "Do you think we'll ever be okay?" I thought about it. Then I looked at the little girl with wild hair and a jar of light. "We are," I said. Because it wasn't about weddings anymore. Or apologies. Or who walked who down the aisle. It was about showing up now. For what came after. For the late nights and school plays and birthday candles. For forgiveness, not because someone earned it, but because you couldn't carry the weight of not forgiving anymore. I'm not a saint. I made mistakes. But I also loved deeply, and gave fully, and stayed longer than most would have. So if that makes me Super Jake? I'll take it. Cape and all.